I'm Jennifer Della Quadri, and this is Subtle Shifts, the podcast where you'll learn how to transform your life from the inside out, one small, meaningful shift at a time. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the podcast. I have been hearing from so many women lately talking about how overwhelmed they are and how stressed they are in their lives. Like they feel like there's just so much going on and they can barely keep up. In fact, today I was on a conversation with one of my clients whose kids are getting ready to be done with school for the year and be home for the summer. Part of her is really happy to have more freedom and flexibility in the schedule. But the other part of her is like, oh no, it's going to get chaotic. Things are going to feel a little bit out of control for a while. So if that's you, your kids are ready to come home for the summer, or maybe you're working and you just feel overwhelmed, you just feel burnt out in life, like you're trying to do too many things all at once, this episode is for you. I invited on Charlotte Haggie, who is a resilience coach, to talk about this exact thing. What she does is she helps moms learn how to not change the circumstances, but how to become more resilient so that the circumstances of the stress and overwhelm don't impact their quality of life. Charlotte is a coach and also the host of the Resilient Working Mom podcast, and she has nearly a decade of experience in resilience building. And she's helped countless working moms strengthen their mental muscles so they can thrive under the weight of life's demands without buckling under the pressure. So in this conversation, we talk about how to enjoy those busy seasons of motherhood by really just building the capacity to manage the things. We also talk about why stress is something that you can manage and how to do it. And we're also talking about this myth of work-life balance and instead finding alignment with your values. And she's also going to share some practical tools for resilience and emotional regulation, including a framework to help you stay calm in life's most hectic times. So without further ado, let's dive into my conversation with Charlotte. Welcome to the podcast, Charlotte. I'm so happy to have you here. This is going to be such a helpful conversation for so many of my listeners. Before we dive into the questions I have for you and the topic, just take a moment and tell my audience who you are.
Thank you, Jennifer, for having me. I am thrilled to be here. I love a good conversation where we can help women to see things differently, to know that there's another way of being, to know that things can be different. So I am super excited to be here today. I'm excited to change some perspectives, especially on the topic that we are talking about today. So thank you for having me. I like to call myself a personal trainer for your mind. And I am all about resilience. So my focus in life, my passion is resilience. And you might ask, what does that got to do with personal training? But I see the building of resilience as the building of the mental muscles that will allow you, me, everybody to hold a heavier and heavier load of the stress that comes at us, what I like to call not stress, but challenge, of more and more challenges coming at us, which they do in this day and age, without buckling under its weight, without really feeling the impact of holding all of these things. So I am a resilience coach, but yes, I before I qualified as a coach, I qualified as a personal trainer. So I'm really interested in how our physical, mental, emotional health operates within the remit of each other. We don't live in a vacuum. And so the bulk of my clients are driven professional women who have a desire to be successful in their career, but they are also mums. They have a longing to be the best mum they can be. And I have the incredible privilege of helping these women build these mental muscles, build the capacity to be calm, to feel at ease in their lives, to move out of the overwhelm and the exhaustion and the burnout that I think so many of us are feeling, and move into a place where they feel more in control. And one of the things that I love to see is when these women start actually taking some time out for themselves without feeling guilty about it. So that is what I love. And I just want to say, I so resonated with a post that you put out on Instagram a couple of days ago about overwhelm and stress being an energy issue. I don't know if you remember
Yes.
that post, but I love to think about the idea that our emotions are energy in motion, and whether that energy is the energy of anxiety and stress, or perhaps it's a different energy of love or joy. These are all different energies that we're experiencing. And so for me, one of the fundamental building blocks of resilience is emotional self-regulation. So exactly as you said, learning how to master the ability to choose what energy you have kind of running the show, so to speak, so that you can feel the way that you want to, so that you can think the way that you want to, so that you can be clear and be decisive and be creative and get the results that you want. So that's a long reply about what I do. But underneath that all, I am a working mum of two. My son is 7, my daughter is 5. I used to be chaotic, frenetic. I used to be a doer. I mean, I still am a doer to some extent, but I used to really do until I had this little boy, this baby, who demanded that I be present and calm and resilient, because he himself doing so much better now, but he would have these 45-minute tantrums and just needed me to be able to help him to manage his huge emotions and the scariness of those emotions for him without me being overwhelmed and stressed by them.
Isn't
So
it
my mission,
amazing how our
yeah,
kids
it's just,
can teach us so much about ourselves? Yeah.
oh, and that little, I look at him now and I'm just so grateful to him, because he's given me this mission and this goal to help mums, to help working mums kind of crawl out from this huge pressure we all feel to do the things, to be the one for everyone, and to just get to a point that actually, what I want to say, my main message in life is that stress is a choice, and my goal is to help mums choose something else, choose who they want to be outside of the stress and the chaos.
What a
So that's
wonderful
me.
gift that would be. Yes, I love that so much. And I always like to bring people on the show who have gone through the thick of it themselves, come out on the other side, and now are helping others through the thick of it. And what I heard you say is that when it comes to being resilient, the people who are coming to you, and these are the same people who listen to my show, they have a lot on their plate. They're busy, they're overwhelmed, they're moms, they're working, they've got a lot going on in their lives, and they imagine, I cannot imagine having more on my plate. I'm already so maxed out. And what really stood out to me was the goal isn't to reduce necessarily the things on your plate, it's to develop a resiliency so that you're not so heavily burdened by them. So if someone in my audience is listening and they're like, I'm already maxed out, what can they do to develop their resiliency? What's something that they could implement right away, or a first step to get them to feel a little more resilient in their life?
I know that this is something, and we've talked about this before, something that you are a big advocate for as well. And for me, one of the first steps that they can take is curiosity, is to, instead of pushing aside whatever they're feeling, instead of just pushing through, is to say, what is going on for me at the moment? What am I feeling? I think so often we don't know what it is that we're feeling, and we have been told, oh, don't feel that, or our children have this incredible privilege of a new way of looking at emotions and understanding emotions. And we are being taught now to help them be able to label their emotions. But certainly in my upbringing, and I think in so many of our generation, a lot of us were told to just get on with it, almost to the point that children should be seen and not heard. But we didn't get to know what we were feeling. And so today we don't know what we're feeling. And actually, for me, stress is a response we have to the challenges that are happening to us rather than stress happening to us.
Mm.
And so when we start to know, oh, I'm feeling something in response to what's going on around me, then we can start to choose what we do about it instead of just letting it happen to us and then have this reactivity to it. We can start to say, actually, I'd like to do something different. I'd like to approach this in a different way. And then we can look at, well, what would that be?
It's so easy to just jump into action. There's something I need to do, or there's something I need to stop doing. There's a conversation I need to have. There's this thing I need to get. But before all of that is the curiosity of what am I really feeling right now? And then the non judgment of what is this experience? What is this feeling here to teach me or to wake me up to, help me acknowledge. It all starts with just being curious with it before you take action. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes, because I think that we have been told that doing is valuable, doing is worthwhile. When I work with my clients in my group coaching program, Resilient, we really look at that. What am I doing in order for me to be the person that I think I should be so that I can have the things that I think I want? But actually, what happens if we look at who we want to be? What would that person do? So I want to be calm. What do I need to do in order, or what would a person who's calm do? So
Mm-hmm.
instead of looking at do, we're looking at uh, who am I? Who do I want to be? What kind of person do I want to be? And then we can choose what we do. Does that person do everything? Or does that person choose what they want to do? Or does that person, they do different things so that they can have different results? And at the end of the day, we all want to have some kind of result. So as you say, it's what is it that we really want? And
Yeah.
how do we get there?
That's such a really good visualization, is where you're imagining that future version of yourself who has the thing that you are wanting for yourself now, and just kind of asking her, what's my next step? What's going on here? And then becoming that person now instead of waiting for it to arrive through action. That's what I'm hearing is a really good strategy. And that's where the resilience is developed. And the important thing that I'm hearing you say is not that your life itself should be free from challenges, free from ups and downs. It's more your capacity to ride the ups and downs without it negatively impacting your life. So if I have a listener who is hearing this and thinking, yeah, but I've got this really big challenge happening at work or in my marriage or with my children, I have this really big challenge and it feels so heavy. To start with curiosity, any other tips that you feel like could really be beneficial for someone in a situation like that?
The first thing, so yes, curiosity. Wow, this is something that I'm really struggling with. I wonder why. I wonder what it is about this particular thing. Because have you ever noticed how you might be really struggling with something or find something really heavy and stressful, and your colleague might be like, "Well, what's the problem? Why it's not stressful? What are you talking about?" Um, and so we do a lot of that work, and I think it's really important through the investigate section of my program is looking at why is it that I am impacted by this challenge. This challenge feel so overwhelming to me, but that person doesn't seem to be impacted by it, because we all look at the world through different lenses. We all see the world through our own experience, through our own stories we have in our heads. And the joyful thing, and it's the thing that I start with at the very beginning, and I push home all the time, is you cannot change, you cannot control what is going on outside of you. In fact, the only thing, the only person, the only thing that you can control is yourself. But when you are resilient, when you have the capacity to manage yourself, you've mastered the ability to manage yourself in the storm. So maybe it's breakfast time and you're trying to get the children together and you have got a deadline this morning and this child can't find their library book and this one has just spilt their breakfast all over their t-shirt and now you've got to change them and you're trying to pack the school lunch. And in that moment, the resilient woman would stand there with the capacity to still think clearly, because she's able to manage her emotional response to all of this chaos going on around her. And she's able to manage herself. She's mastered the ability to manage herself in response to what's going on around her. And so she can choose, okay, this is the thing I'm going to do next. Now I'm going to do this, or I'm going to set a boundary and say, I'm sorry, you can't find your library book. That's your problem. Uh, First of all, she has a lot more time. One of the best parts of my morning is the 20 minutes before we need to go to school, because we are all ready to go and we read together for 20 minutes before we need to go to school. So we don't have this rush and this chaos and this, look, doesn't happen every morning, but generally I now have the capacity to manage myself in response to what's going on around me, so that I can be calm, so that the children can stay calm, so that we can get the results that we want.
That's such a beautiful picture. Is so many people leave the house feeling frantic and rushed. And that's not a great way to start your day or for your kids to start their day. To be able to schedule and create the morning routine to allow for that space of stillness, whatever that would look like, so that when you leave the house, you feel more grounded. And that's really the routine of it all. So that's also the doing. So yes, creating the lifestyle that really aligns with who you're becoming and who you're wanting to be, and being able to have that space will, of course, give you more resilience. And one of the things, to shift gears just a little bit here, I know you work with professional women. There's a narrative out there that I think could really knock people off of their game. And that is that the goal is to find balance in life. And what I'm hearing from you is that the idea of having a work-life balance is a lie. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Such a good myth that I love to bust, because we are told that we just need to find balance. And when we find balance, everything will seem easier. But it's almost like the idea of balance suggests that everything in your life is going to be given the same amount of attention, the same amount of energy. So I'm going to balance work and I'm going to balance home, and it's kind of saying that your work, your children, your partner, yourself, your community, all will get an equal amount of your holding. But that's not the case. It doesn't work that way. And we are told, well, if you time block better, or if you multitask more, or if you practice self-care, you'll be able to balance it so much more. But for me, what I believe the key is to being able to choose. Again, it's like I choose what I give my attention to. I am able to put down the things that I don't want to give the equal piece of the pie to. I get to live my life in alignment with my values because I know what's important to me and I'm not driven by a need to please. You know, we were talking about being a certain person. And, you know, you hear it all the time. Oh, I'm just a people pleaser, or I'm just a perfectionist, or, you know, I'm just whatever. And we almost excuse ourselves from trying to do it all by giving ourselves these identities. But when you have the mental muscles, you know, if we think of a juggler on a tightrope, and that juggler is saying, I've got these three skittles and I'm going to juggle them, but I've also got the muscles that allow me to stand firm on this tightrope. So I've chosen these three things to give my attention to, and don't give me another one because I don't have the capacity for that fourth one, or give me another one because I do. But that juggler knows exactly what their capacity is. They also have the muscles, as I say, to and the certainty to step out onto that tightrope, and a gust of wind can come in from the left field, or someone could shoot something at them, but they are certain, they are confident, they can stand firm with their eye fixed on the prize, and that is the kind of balance that I think we need to focus on, is actually a balance that allows me, it's not work-life balance, it's not balancing the juggle of it all, it's actually knowing what's important to me, knowing why I do all these things, and then knowing how am I going to change so that I can actually do the things that matter to me. I'm not trying to live up to this impossible standard that's being set for me out there, and I can really focus on what matters.
What a great analogy. And I can just picture that juggler in my mind, juggling the things in the air and still being completely centered and balanced in themselves versus having all of the things that they're juggling being balanced. And it all comes down to how they feel on the inside with everything they're juggling going on at the same time. And also what you were saying too is they know their capacity, so they're not going to take on another thing to juggle until they have developed the wherewithal to take on that extra thing. So the focus comes less on the things they're juggling and more on themselves and getting balance within themselves so that they can keep everything kind of going in the air. And to go further with this analogy, I imagine when they're juggling, they've got something in their hand, but there's something in the air. So not everything is 100% in their control at all times, meaning not in their hands at all times, but they're all kind of getting an equal rhythmic playtime. And then they find the balance within themselves to be able to manage everything that's going on around them.
Yes, and they have the capacity to focus on those things. I think that is, you know, if you've got one in the air, you can still focus on that thing because you're not being distracted by all the other noise around you. I think we live with so much noise in our heads. And going back to what I was talking about emotional self-regulation, if you can master your body, like that juggler, it has mastered how their body feels. I mean, I'm really taking the analogy to the extreme,
Yeah,
but
we're just going with it.
we're rolling with it. So few people, when I'll say to a client, where do you feel that? Or what do you feel about this? And it's all in their heads. It's all about what they think about it. And when we get to know what we really feel about something, I actually had a client this afternoon and I was talking to her about she was so caught up in all the chaos that was going on in her head about a conversation she'd had with a manager and what that meant about her, and you know the words were just pouring out of her mind, and we slowed that down because with high emotion comes low intellect, and you cannot think clearly. You cannot think decisively when your emotions are all a twitter. And so we got her out of her head and into her body and really getting to know, what am I feeling? Where does that, not necessarily labeling it just yet, but what does that feel like? How does it move? What color is it? She's getting to know more and more her body so that she can then begin to choose how her body feels when something's coming at her, when a challenge is coming at her from the outside, and then be able to choose how she responds to it rather than reacting to it and then going away and feeling guilty about it and then being again caught up in the noise and just stuck in this mental. Another thing that causes such huge stress is this mental resistance to whatever is going on outside of you.
Isn't that the truth? And I love what you were saying about so many of the challenges reside in our brains and our minds, and how much time we spend in the thoughts. Whereas if we're able to step back, pause for a minute, and connect with the feeling. I know I had the same experience when I asked people, well, tell me about how that makes you feel. They'll go immediately to what they think about it. And that's just out of habit, right? There's no judgment there. It's a habit. It's just the way that we've been operating as a human race. Our brains are really important, right? And so we rely on them sometimes too much. And so to bring it back to resiliency, what I'm hearing to be more resilient is to also know how to get out of your head and into your body before you make decisive action about how to proceed.
Yes, because if you are acting out of a stress response. So if you're acting out of fight or flight, you are fighting the situation, or you're running away from it, or you're freezing. I mean, this is why so many of us spend so much time scrolling through social media or binging on Netflix, because that's actually just a flight response to the things that are happening around us. And so we're either wasting our time. Another big issue that we have is this thing around time. We're either wasting our time watching something or looking at a screen, or repairing a relationship because we reacted out of something and now we've got to spend the time, sorting that issue out. Or we are fawning and we're just pleasing all the time. And as a result of this, we're absolutely exhausted, because if you're in this stress response all the time, you're never getting to a point. If you think in the caveman days, we would go out, we would come across a threat. The threat would be in our path. We'd fight it, we'd flight it, we'd freeze in front of it, and then we'd go back to our village and we'd be safe. But in today's day and age, we go to the supermarket and get our food, but the threats are to our identity. The threats are to our reputation. They're to, am I a good mum? Okay, well, now I've got to be working so hard to be a good mum all the time, or a good manager, or a good wife. And it is absolutely exhausting. And eventually we find ourselves getting to a point where we're just not getting the results that we want. We're exhausted and we kind of just want to check out.
Yeah, and that's where building the muscle comes in. I love that analogy that you shared at the beginning. And the more you can practice building that muscle, the more resilient you can become. So for my audience, I would love it if you would share, and I love the going from the physical, and we were talking about how it resides in our physical body, to build the muscle of resilience. What are some proactive things that someone could do to actively start becoming more resilient in their life?
The first thing is to pause. So stop, slow down, stop, pause. And as we said before, be curious. Why am I rushing? What's going on here? And building the mental muscles comes in noticing our patterns and then deciding, okay, I want to do something different. It's really useful to have professionals like yourself, like me, like anybody who helps one to notice patterns, because often we're so stuck in them ourselves that it's quite hard to see where we are doing the things that are causing us to actually be weaker. um, or to not be as resilient, should I say, not weaker, but to have somebody reflecting things back at you, observing things about you, saying, "Gosh, I noticed when this happens, you seem to feel this," or "Do you know where else you might feel that?" And we have the privilege in this day and age of people being able to speak about what's going on for them. And these things are no longer stigmatized, or there's no longer this need to hold it in. Go and find someone and say, "Oh, I'm really struggling here. I'd just like an opportunity to talk about what's going on for me without any judgment, and maybe just with some reflection." Because it's in that talking that we have these aha moments, these kind of and objectifying it in a way, getting it out so it's not the chaos in our heads. But then there are, I mean, resilience has a whole skill set, and we go through that skill set and we build those muscles in my program. But in order to build your capacity to emotionally self-regulate, the one great trick, and I love the acronym BREATHE, is to breathe rhythmically, evenly, and through the heart every day. So what does that mean? That means to breathe rhythmically and evenly. We often think if we're stressed out, we should take a big, deep breath. But actually, there are 12 elements to breath. And the first two, the most important, are these ideas of rhythmic, even breathing. So maybe it's 5 counts in, 5 counts out, 5 counts in, or 4, or whatever works for you. But keep it rhythmic and even. And then picture that breath moving in and out of the organ of your heart. So turn your attention away from whatever's going on outside of you to your heart, and breathe that air through the organ of your heart. And practice this in the moment. You can practice this on the loo, you can practice this in the car, you can practice this when you're having a conversation with someone who is triggering you, and you can feel this volcano building up inside you. And notice how that way of breathing helps to bring your body, bring your nervous system back into a neutral place where you can then start to think more clearly. I base a lot of my work on Nancy Klein, and she talks about the thinking environment. And how do we create a thinking environment, an environment where people can think, where we can think? And for me, we need to create an internal thinking environment, a thinking environment that allows us to be logical, to be rational, to be creative. And you cannot be like that when you are in this state, in this stress response, because if you were like that, you would get eaten by the lion. But we're not in front of these lions anymore. So now we want to be clear. We want to choose what we can do, what we're going to do, rather than, 10 minutes after the fact, think, "God, I can't believe I did that. What was
Yeah.
I thinking?" Well, you weren't thinking, because your prefrontal cortex, the logical, executive functioning part of your brain was gone, and you were a toddler.
Yeah. I love
So
that breathe acronym. I've never heard that before. I've heard so many acronyms, and I've done a ton of work on breath work and everything, but I've never heard it through that explanation. And the idea of first breathing rhythmically really does help you slow down, but breathing specifically through your heart, it brings you back to your center, which your heart is in your center, and then also helps you come from a heart space, which again is where that curiosity is going to be able to come from. While you were talking about all the different places that you could do that breathing, I was doing that breathing, and I was like, I can do that right here while listening to you talk about it. What a wonderful tool that you can really use everywhere. It's free, it's accessible, it's right there at all times. And the more you practice it, the more available it will be in those moments of stress. Such a great reminder. And the whole process of just the awareness and being able to express what you are thinking and having it reflected back, and the regular practice of coming back to your center and coming back to that calm and that peace rhythmically. Again, that's where the resilience comes from. So what a beautiful practice to be able to wrap this conversation up with. I know that my audience will be able to implement that the moment they get off of this episode. Thank you for coming on here. And I would love for you to share with my audience how they can find you, because I know they're going to want to learn more from you. Where can they find you? And I'll, of course, put the links, but tell me more about where you are.
So I have a podcast as well called The Resilient Working Mum, and that's MUM. I'm in South Africa, so although actually most people here spell it MOMs. But yeah, The Resilient Working Mum. And I am on Facebook and Instagram. My handle is at Charlotte Coaches, and also my website, charlottehaggie.com. And yeah, I just love to see women freed of stress and overwhelm, and just to find. The other thing I just want to say before I go is that for me, resilience is an intergenerational thing. And when you as a mum build your own resilience, it's just so beautiful to see how children, so many of my clients have said to me, my children are seeing me in a different light, and they are stronger, they are more resilient, and we can give this gift to our children. And that is my longing, is just that women's lives are changed, but that their children's lives are changed too.
We share that mission, and what a beautiful mission that is. Thank you for coming on and sharing your expertise. This has been such a good conversation, Charlotte, and I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me. If you're ready to take the next step in transforming your life, be sure to subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. And if something resonated with you today, I'd love to hear about it. Share your thoughts, tag me on social media, or leave a review to help others find the podcast. Remember, the smallest shifts can create the biggest transformations. I look forward to hearing from you.